Hit that like, hit that subscribe, turn those notifications on. Sports Hounds go live right now.
Let's go! This ain't the fuck like he wants his dick and he stinks!
Oh shit!
It's gone!
Good evening, everyone. Happy Monday night. Happy Valentine's Day, Brad. Brad, I don't know if you recall this, but you know what is it? 7 years now?
Yes, our first
14th,
show. Our first show was on
13th.
Sunday on Valentine's Day.
Yes, our 7-year anniversary on the air together. Sunday, February 14th, 2016. Our first broadcast ever. It's on a different platform, 1360 WNJC Radio. Sports Hounds were born. We've been all over the place, and we've done a lot together. And now we've found a stable home here on A2D Radio, and I couldn't be happier about it.
Absolutely.
A lot of things are happening in 2022 for A2D Radio. Keep it locked in right here. Make sure you got those notifications on. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that share. Help us grow. We're here for you. We're for the fan, by the fan. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram. You miss anything here on A2D Radio, download us wherever you get your favorite podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, iTunes. It's Takeover Talk. A2D Radio is everywhere. Join the party. Tell everybody about the party. We're brought to you each and every Monday night by our doc. Make them yours too. Dr. Paul Vidal, specialized physical therapy, right there on the screen. Like I said, he's all our doc. Make him yours too. Specialized physical therapy. He's got 2 convenient locations in Burlington and Cherry Hill. We got a big show tonight. Obviously, the big game, the football season culminated last night with the Rams defeating the Bengals in the Super Bowl. We're going to break down that whole game. We're going to talk about Matthew Stafford. We're going to get into maybe some off-season talk, early off-season talk as well, because I think the landscape is about to change, especially in the NFC, Brad. We were talking about it before the show. Like, it's going to be tough for the Bengals to get back there. Not because they're not good and Joe Burrow isn't good and Jamar Chase isn't good, but Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, Derek Carr, all the quarterbacks are in the AFC these days. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get our final licks in on number 25 from Australia. I said yesterday on the rant, I talked about him there because trade's still relatively fresh. We're going to talk about him tonight. And then we're going to send Ben Simmons, number 25 from Australia. We're going to send him into the abyss because sharks only swim forward, Brad. Sharks don't swim backwards. Sharks don't look backwards. And that's what the Sixers are now with James Harden. They're sharks. They're clear contenders in the Eastern Conference. Whether they're going to get there or not, we'll see. Obviously, James Harden, if you didn't hear, he's not going to play until after the All-Star break. He's going to nurse that hamstring for as long as he can. It really doesn't matter, Brad. I know you're concerned, and some people are concerned. Like, who cares? This season doesn't start, in my opinion, until the Eastern Conference Finals. And if you don't make the Eastern Conference Finals, then yeah, that's a failure, in my opinion, for the Sixers.
You got to get to the finals this year. With
and we're back end of the show. We had a hockey trade today. We'll talk about what that happens for some of the Flyers, some of the Rangers. Other teams in contentions, the buyers and the sellers. And, the MLB labor talks, they continue or don't continue for lack thereof.
I could just shake my head about that. I really don't have anything to say about that because I'm just completely disgusted with those guys.
I mean, it's just greed. It's just pure greed.
Yep.
By the owners, and it's sad because they lost money for the first time over COVID in 125 years or whatever it is, and they want to kick their hands and stomp their feet and just continue to try and take advantage of the players. That's at least how I see it. And so we got, as always, we'll be filtering in your comments throughout the show. So keep them coming. Whether you're on Facebook, you're on YouTube, wherever you are, we got all your comments right here. It's an interactive show here on the Sports Town. So get involved, especially if you don't agree with us. People rarely do, even though I pretty much had that game handicapped to perfection yesterday, as did you, Brad Ryer. I'm a rich man. I'm a rich man after yesterday. Cashed a big futures bet on the Rams, and I won my hedge.
We both. By the way, if you guys have been listening to us all season, beginning of the season, we both picked the Rams to win the Super Bowl.
I did not pick the Rams. Yeah, you did. So kudos to you.
You did. Yeah, but you put money on it.
I did, but I put it.
I didn't put money on it.
I put money on some losers as well. So we won't talk about those. We'll focus on the wins because, like I said, sharks swim forwards, not backwards.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I hedged my bet yesterday because there's no reason to lose money on that big futures bet. So you at least break even. So I took the Bengals plus 4.5, and I won them both. I flew close to the sun, and I was able to survive. Hopefully you out there fared just as well as me on the props, and it's a lot of fun with the Super Bowl. But let's get to our poll question tonight. Our poll question tonight is brought to you by All Campus. Down on the Ocean City Boardwalk, they host the Ramp Booth with myself, John Coyle. Never know who's going to show up on the Ramp Booth. All Campus between 10th and 11th Street on the Ocean City Boardwalk. 20% off everything in the store, including hats, shirts, and our team cornhole sets to all our subscribers. If you want to be a subscriber, it's $9.99 a month. You get special perks, shout-outs, members-only shows, picks from the Money Pop podcast, and Willie Vegas. So $9.99 a month, you pay the rent. They know what they're doing. They're sharp handicappers, much sharper than myself and Brad here on the radio. Don't let my wins yesterday fool you. I stink. So listen to them.
Me too.
Listen to them, not us. But our poll question, Brad, centers around one, Matthew Stafford. Is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer? Agree or disagree? I'll let you start. You're a little longer in the tooth. You're a little wiser than I. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks play from a lot of different eras. Where does Matthew Stafford stack up?
Boy, that's a tough one, Rob. He's been on a bad team for so long. And that's the problem. He finally got himself on a good team, and now everybody realizes just how good he is. I would have to say yes, because again, winning the Super Bowl to me really matters. He basically, you could see the difference between a Hall of Fame player and a non-Hall of Fame player by just the fact that when the money was on the line. When the chips had to be thrown in the middle of the table with 6 minutes to go in the game, missing one of your top weapons, okay, and having no running game, Matt Stafford took it upon himself and Cooper Kupp as well to will themselves to a victory. I mean, it really, really reminded me. The poor Bengals, they have had 3 Super Bowls like this. They had the game against Montana in 1980. Then they had the game in 89 when Boomer was the quarterback. And, what Montana did to the Bengals back in 89 when they marched down the field, at the end of the game, when he had the drive and broke the Bengals' heart. This is very similar. And now you have Matt Stafford, who, in my opinion, was able to drive his team down the field in 6 minutes and win the game. That was just a remarkable drive, and those are the kind of drives that put you in the Hall of Fame, especially when you win a championship. That if you take a look at his numbers, he's had unbelievable numbers playing on a horrible team for all these years. He has never had a team that could run the football. He did have Megatron, so I'll give him that, but he's never had an offensive line. He's never had a team that could really run the football. He wasn't there when Barry was there. I mean, if he was there when Barry was there, could you imagine how good he would be? Also had a lot of injuries to start his career, but the guy's he's a gunslinger, and he does what he has to do to win games. And he had a great game. He was really good throughout the whole playoff. Every time he needed to make a big drive, every time he needed to do something and make it happen, he did it. mean, how about the comeback last week, 2 weeks ago against San Francisco in the fourth quarter?
Down double digits.
Against that defense, which is as good a defense as there is in the league, comes back and wins the game.
Yeah, it's a no doubt about it.
I didn't see Rodgers doing that. Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think it's pretty much guaranteed that he'll be a first-round Hall of Famer. I didn't see him doing that. The only one I saw
Aaron
do
Rodgers, first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. 4 MVP awards, 1 championship. But, Matt Stafford, this is his 13th year. 12 of his 13 years were in Detroit. Aaron Rodgers has been playing in Green Bay with absolutely loaded teams, despite what Aaron Rodgers wants you to believe about the Green Bay Packers and how they build football teams up there in Green Bay. He's had loaded teams his whole career.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's not – and they both have the same amount of Super Bowls.
That's correct.
Which is remarkable to me. But
also,
let's look at this.
Take a look at the quality of quarterback that Matt Stafford beat this year. Okay? He beat Tom Brady. He beat
he beat Kyler. He beat Brady. He beat Garoppolo. Then he beat Burrow.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. So he basically did what he had to do. And he beat Brady. I mean, that's not something everybody does in the playoffs, that's for sure.
There's Blue City Empire Sports. He's our first comment of the night. First comment of the night is brought to you by Body Check Wellness. Body Check Wellness uses the potentials of hemp. Potentials promotes wellness, balance, and recovery using the potential of hemp. They come in extract blends, gummies, and topicals. Use promo code A2D for 25% off. Comes from Blue City Empire Sports. So let me get this straight. Matthew Stafford deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, but Eli Manning does not. You goddamn.
I never said that.
I'm about to right now. Because you know that I'm anti Eli Manning in the Hall of Fame. If Eli Manning played in Detroit for 12 years, he wouldn't have his rings.
Eli Manning also played on some pretty lousy teams too, Rob, for a long time. When he had good teams and he got to the playoffs, he won.
Just look at the eye test. If you want to use the eye test and use my old eyeballs here,
okay,
and you want to tell me Matt Stafford is a better quarterback?
57,000 yards passing lifetime. Okay. What did he have? 370 touchdown passes, 2 Super Bowl championships, 2 Super Bowl MVPs. That's a Hall of Fame. That's a Hall of Fame quarterback. So, but I mean, we're not really going to talk about Eli Manning right now. We got to talk about Stafford. Eli Manning.
I am because it's part of my argument. It's part of my argument, and there's more to being a Hall of Fame.
I think the bottom line with you is you just don't like the Giants because you actually think Reggie White is better than Lawrence Taylor, and
I don't like.
We can argue about that all. We can argue about that all day. And
no, I don't like Lawrence Taylor. You see all these guys getting shut out of the Baseball Hall of Fame for character issues, and you have Lawrence Taylor, who's regarded as, Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior of defense, when he was just not a good person. He just wasn't.
But it doesn't matter if you're a good person or not. Obviously,
I agree with that, but I'm not putting Lawrence Taylor on a pedestal like you Giants fans do.
Well, he's the greatest defensive player of all time.
Yeah. All right. Cool. I'll give him top 3.
Top 3. Who's better than him?
Give me Reggie.
Don't tell me Reggie White. Reggie White couldn't shine Lawrence Taylor's shoes.
Give me and the guy Aaron Donald, who I thought should have been the MVP last night, but wasn't. They gave it to Cooper Kupp, which is fine. It's fine. It's an offensive league, and that's the way that they want their accolades to be recognized. But I mean, I could make a strong case for Aaron Donald being the MVP last night. So,
MVP last night, yeah, he was good, but he didn't really show up until the fourth quarter. But I mean,
he had two sacks. He pretty much penetrated the interior of the Bengals defensive line.
Second half,
whatever he wanted.
The second half, they were terrific.
I mean, they had 7 sacks. So you look at a guy like Aaron Donald, like he's right up there in the top 5 defensive players of all time as well.
I agree with that.
If you want to but getting back to Matthew Stafford and his resume, look, Matthew Stafford, and as far as the counting stats and the accumulation stats, Matthew Stafford's not done yet.
No.
There's no indication that he's going to be going anywhere.
Yeah, he's
so let's hold the phone. let's hold the phone on the counting stats right here. And I know he's a gunslinger, and his interceptions are going to be inflated because he's a gunslinger. But I'll take a gunslinger that throws picks if you can do what you can. Matthew Stafford, if he can do what he can do for me with his elite arm talent and his elite arm strength, I can live with some picks.
Okay.
You got
again. That's part of his resume. Matthew Stafford.
You get a guy like Jalen Hurts who's got a water pistol for an arm and can't read defenses. I can't live with picks and I can't live with turnovers. So when you look at Matthew Stafford and his whole
49,000.
If you look at Matthew Stafford and his resume, let's start with this postseason. We just mentioned the quarterbacks he just beat to get there. Right. He out-Brady Tom Brady on the road in the playoffs. Not a lot of people can say they did. Nick Foles, Eli Manning, and Matthew Stafford, really. Peyton Manning, I guess, did it a few times as well. So
Peyton never beat him on the road.
Okay.
Never beat him on the road. No.
Fair.
So that's something that's something there. But again, we're talking about Stafford now. 49,995 yards, career regular season. Okay.
All right. So all those people in the chat that are saying does he have 50,000 passing yards, like you guys can shut up and go pound.
He's 5 yards away.
He's 4,995. He's 5 yards away. Okay, right. We can round up on that. So he has 50,000 yards passing. Yes.
He has 323 touchdown passes. Okay.
In 13 seasons. That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. 161 interceptions. But you'd have to expect that because he throws the ball a lot. And a 91.1 rating. That's not bad. His high, he's done it twice. All time for touchdown passes in the season. Twice he's thrown for 41 touchdown passes.
And I believe he has a 5,000-yard season on his resume.
Yep, 2011, 5,038 yards, 41 touchdowns, 16 picks. So that's pretty good. And he also won in 2012, 4,967. I mean, you take a look at some of these years with Detroit, 4,080 in 2020, and remember how bad these teams were. 4,084, 2,499 in 2019, 2018 with an awful team, 3,777. 17, they weren't that bad. 4,446, then 43,27 and 16, 42,62. He's had a zillion 4,000-yard seasons. He's a Hall of Famer in my book. And you take a look at.
I mean, like you look at a guy who, and not to mention his fourth quarter comebacks, which he did, 3 times this postseason. I guess the Rams. Right. I guess the Tampa game wasn't really a comeback, but Tom Brady was not going quietly. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers were not going to go quietly in that football game, and Matt Stafford persevered. And I can't really put many of the mistakes on Matthew Stafford in that game. Cooper Kupp fumbled. They snapped the ball over his head.
Only one. And I mean, really, Cam Akers kind of messed up that game for them.
Cam Akers fumbled as well. So
he fumbled twice. He fumbled down by the goal line, and then he fumbled the handoff at the 28-yard line, in which Brady went and immediately threw a touchdown pass. So I mean, he had 2 fumbles in that game.
None of those mistakes are centered around Matthew Stafford. So yeah, they blew a 27-3 lead, but Matthew Stafford persevered, overcame, made a big-time throw to Cooper Kupp to set up the game-winning field goal, sends Tampa Bay into the abyss, sends Tom Brady into retirement, thus changing the landscape for now of the NFC. We'll see what Tom Brady does when August comes around, because I'll be damned if I don't think that Tom Brady is going to be the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers next year. I'll believe he's retired when someone else is under center for Tampa Bay next year.
Yeah, I'll believe he's retired when he doesn't report to preseason football. That's
correct.
Basically how I look at it. I think for right now, he wants to sit back and relax, and he'll get the itch again. That's my prediction.
So, like, if all these people in the chat and all these New York fans want to tell me Eli's a lock for the Hall of Fame, then
Eli's not a lock, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback.
And I gotta stick up for my man Stafford, who I've always been a fan of. and say that he's a Hall of Famer as well. Look at his fourth quarter comeback. Look, if you're going to use the eye test and look at Eli and Stafford next to each other and tell me you're not taking Stafford 7 days of the week and twice on Sunday from a pure talent standpoint, I think you're out of your mind.
I don't know about that. Eli never had Calvin Johnson to throw the ball to either. So that is one thing that
but
that's
they had
one thing
offensive
that
line and defense, and they had an actual football team in New York, whereas Detroit never had a clue. And when they started to get a clue with Jim Caldwell as their coach, they go back-to-back 9 and 7 seasons, and they get beat in a do-or-die situation for the NFC North by Aaron Rodgers, who's one of the top 5, probably one of the top 5 greatest quarterback ever. Like, okay, so he's not a Hall of Famer because he's not as good as Aaron Rodgers?
Well, Eli Manning beat Aaron Rodgers, and he beat Brett Favre, and he beat Brady twice. So
well, if you want to argue Eli Manning over Matt Stafford from a pure talent standpoint, then God bless you.
Eli also had a lot more mobility back in the day. Until he was like 100 years old, then he wasn't very good anymore. But in his prime, till 2016, Eli was a very, very good quarterback, and he had some elite seasons. Eli got the job done. He just did. He was tremendous. When the situations got more important, Eli raised his level of play every time.
How's that different than Matt Stafford?
Well, Matt Stafford, unfortunately, he just couldn't beat the good teams when he was on Green Bay. But when he was on Detroit. Now that he's on the Rams, he does have a loaded team. Let's be honest, okay? But you still have to give him a ton of credit because you know what? Yesterday they were going up against a team that looked like they were going to win the championship yesterday in the Bengals. They had everything going for them, and he willed that team down the field in the last 6 minutes of the game. And that's something that, as I said, that's kind of what Eli Manning did twice against the New England Patriots. He willed his way down the field and found a way to win. And they both did the same thing. They did what they had to do to win their games. Was Stafford spectacular yesterday for most of the game? Not really. No. 230 yards passing is not superstar material. He was pretty quiet for most of the game, came up big at the end. He did a great job against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, especially when the Buccaneers came back and tied that game. He was able to orchestrate the winning drive, and they won that game. And listen, that's what great quarterbacks do, Rob. When the light is shining brightest, they play their best, and that's what Stafford did, and that's the same thing Eli Manning did. So I don't see what the difference between those two teams are. Those two quarterbacks are. They both basically did the same thing. They're very, very similar statistically. They both. Eli, when you gave Matt Stafford some talent, he did great. You can make the argument that Matt Stafford had a great one because he had a great defense, which he did. So did Eli. But, bottom line is it's not so easy to win a Super Bowl. It's very hard. And it's really hard to do in the last 2 minutes of the game. Not too many quarterbacks are able to do that. Only the best of the best are able to do that. And
the only thing I'll say about yesterday is, Higbee, their starting tight end, didn't play. Their running backs didn't really do much of anything. And when Odell Beckham Jr. went down, they were up 13-3. And it was a huge adjustment period because Robert Woods is out with the ACL. You still have Cooper Kupp, but Odell was on his way to having a monster game. He catches the first touchdown. I think he had 52 catches on 54 yards before he hurt his knee. But after Odell went out, the Rams offense really took a hit. They had some problems moving the ball until they figured it out on that last drive.
They really didn't do much of anything for in the second and third quarter. They had, how many times did they have the ball starting at like the 50-yard line and couldn't do anything, couldn't take advantage of it?
There's Bob Brinkman. He played for a terrible team with no stability. The fact that he only has only one Pro Bowl is because They had Rodgers, Manning, Breeze, and Brady to deal with, all Hall of Famers. Stafford is a Hall of Famer. I don't care about the Pro Bowl. One Pro Bowl, I don't care. Cool. It's all a popularity contest anyway. Like,
I'm not worried about the Pro Bowl.
Detroit Lions quarterback's just not going to get love when it comes to, the Aaron Rodgers, the Drew Brees, the Eli Manning, who's going to get the bump over Stafford, at least in public opinion because of his last name. But I still maintain that if Eli Manning's last name was Stafford and Matthew Stafford's last name was Manning, that win yesterday would be putting Matthew Stafford on a whole different – where the public narrative is a whole different ball of worms come this morning.
I don't know about that. But the other thing I would say, if you're going to be comparing Manning, don't forget Manning was there every week, which is – to me, is unfathomable.
Stafford really only had one injury in his whole career. And Stafford's tough as nails too. Remember he threw a touchdown with a dislocated shoulder to win the game against Cleveland the one regular season?
Yep. Yeah, no, listen, I'm not taking anything away from Stafford. I'm just saying that don't forget Eli Manning never missed a game due to injury.
I understand you're not, but it seems like this guy can't catch a break with the public narrative. I mean, he does everything right all the time.
Why there's not more love for Stafford.
Brad, going into the game, and I talked about this on the rant booth yesterday, everyone's talking about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow this, Joe Burrow that. He beat the Titans on the road. He beat the big comeback in Kansas City. I get it. Joe Burrow's great. The Bengals are a cool team. I get it. But I'll be damned if going into that game that Joe Burrow wasn't getting put on a pedestal that Matthew Stafford wasn't. When I think going into the game, if you look at the storylines, that Matthew Stafford was a much bigger storyline than Joe Burrow. Beat Brady, come back against the Niners, both incredible wins for your legacy.
Exactly. Right? Absolutely. Listen, that drive, as I said, that drive at the end of the game yesterday for the Rams. That's a Hall of Fame drive.
I mean, he's on a bad team for 12 years.
He has one receiver, Rob, to throw the ball to. As a matter of fact, the running game yesterday was so bad that on 4th and 1, they do an end around with Kupp because they couldn't run the ball at all.
I mean, I thought that was a really genius play call, but
it was. But I'm just saying that's how bad the running game was yesterday. None of the running backs could do anything. When Stafford tried to do a quarterback sneak, he couldn't get the ball in running. They had no running game whatsoever, the Rams. And then in a drive where everybody in the world knew he was going to have to pass because the running game was completely useless, he found a way. And he was getting fierce pressure. He didn't have a lot of time, but he was able to avoid the pass rush, stand in there, cool as a cucumber, and do what he had to do. And I love quarterbacks that can do that. I love seeing quarterbacks that raise their level of play in a big spot. That's the thing legends are made of. I'm glad to see Aaron Donald finally get a ring. I'm glad to see Miller got another one. It's you and I have one thing in common as far as some of these great players. Okay, we like greatness to be rewarded, and greatness was rewarded yesterday.
Blue City Empire Sports, do you believe the LA Rams bought a Super Bowl? No, I don't believe that, Blue City Empire Sports. It's a hard cap league. You can only spend so much on your players. And the Rams are going to pay for trading for Von Miller and trading for Jalen Ramsey and all the stuff that they did. But they're not going to have a first-round draft pick the next couple of years.
Or second. Listen, the Rams were built to win this year.
But Brad,
they have a chance. They'll have a chance to defend their championship next year. But if you're asking me 2 or 3 years down the road, the Rams are not going to be contenders. And when the ship goes down with the Rams, they're going to have a very long rebuilding period because they traded all their top draft choices.
And to speak on the greatness, like the Rams stars showed up yesterday.
They sure did.
Stafford, Kupp, Aaron Donald, Von Miller. All the guys that were paid to come up big in big spots didn't shy away from the spotlight. They went in there and they got the job done. And I'm a big fan of that, which I think we both just spoke to. So, no, I don't think the LA Rams bought a championship.
You
just
can't
like
play a championship when you have a league that has a hard cap.
Bryce Blackwell's in the house. Mr. Wing, Stafford has one Pro Bowl in his career and threw some awful passes. Ref bailed him out. I mean, that comment, I just disagree with every aspect of that comment right there, Mr. Wing. Stafford, I don't care that he had one Pro Bowl. Like Jalen Hurts, like Josh Sweat made the Pro Bowl this year. You kidding me? We're putting emphasis on the Pro Bowl.
Here's my question. Did anybody out there actually watch that joke of a football game?
No, I didn't watch a second of it.
I watched 5 minutes of the flag football game because I haven't watched a Pro Bowl in about 10 years. So I said to myself, you know what? There's nothing else on. I think I'll watch a little bit of the Pro Bowl. And after watching the joke that was the Pro Bowl for about 5 minutes, I turned the channel because it was like watching paint dry. Seeing guys two-hand touch and the referees blow the whistle. Get out of here with that.
And then
I understand that you guys don't want to get hurt, but don't play the game then if you're going to play like that.
And then Mr. Wing, he says he throws some awful passes, but I mean,
Joe Burrow
threw a 50-50 ball. I mean, let's just talk about his awful passes. I mean, I know that he got away with one the NFC title game where he threw it inexplicably right to a Niners guy, and then I forget what Niners guy it was, and he dropped it. Okay, that's the breaks of sports sometimes. You know, there's a guy on the Niners that couldn't come through in the moment, whereas the Ram Stars did yesterday. So he threw a pick in the end zone, which was a 50-50 ball, which was in essence a punt because the Bengals get it on the 25-yard line. You know, if you're a gunslinger, he's going to throw 50-50 balls, and sometimes those 50-50 balls, they're going to go the other way. I don't have a problem with that. And then his other pick was tipped.
Yeah, I mean, look, here's my question. And if you guys want to talk about that, was Brett Favre a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Joe Namath a Hall of Famer?
I mean, Tom Brady has the most interceptions in playoff history.
Right. Joe Montana, if my memory serves me correctly, I believe had one playoff game where he threw 3 interceptions in the first half, and they were booing the hell out of him in San Francisco, and when they actually lost the playoff game. I can't remember which year it was, Rob, but he actually threw 3 in the first half, and they were booing the hell out of him. He had a horrible game. Some of these guys do throw interceptions. Any quarterback that throws the ball a lot is going to throw interceptions. If you're not throwing interceptions, then you're not trying hard enough. Because they're Riverside gamblers. That's what a lot of them are.
And then the third part of that comment from Mr. Wing, and Mr. Wing, I love you. She tunes in each and every week, and that's just what the platform is set up to do. It's agree to disagree radio. And he wants to say the refs bailed out Stafford and the Rams. Couldn't disagree more. I guess you missed when T. Higgins scored his long touchdown that he just pretty much ripped the helmet off of Jalen Ramsey with a no call. So that's not that bailed out Matthew Stafford and the Bengals. Yeah, forget that. Just because they happened. And then, you know, the hold on Eli Apple and the goal line to at the end of the game, like that's a hold.
He grabbed his jersey. He was pulling his
his jersey on the inside and the outside. He prevented, I think it was Cooper Kupp from, you know, doing his little stick route, going to the pylon. He prevented him from getting to the pylon. Still almost caught the football. So there's no doubt in my mind that Cooper Kupp would have caught that football if he weren't held by Eli Apple. And then there was another one. There was another one with the helmet on Cooper Kupp, and then there was something else, and it was offsetting. But right. I mean, that's hit on a defenseless receiver all day. Not saying I agree with it, but this is how the game's ref these days on Cooper Kupp, and then the Bengals got bailed out because the Rams held or something. So when you say the refs bailed them out, like, I don't know what game you're watching.
Yeah, I just don't
get it. The biggest no call of the game, Brad, was committed by T. Higgins on Jalen Ramsey on the 75-yard touchdown to open the second half.
Yeah,
no one wants to talk about that because it's not cool to give Matthew Stafford credit because he's on the Rams, and the America's Cinderella story was the Cincinnati Bengals. So if you're going to blame the refs, it's got to be a two-sided argument.
It was, you know what? That was Saint-like. It was so bad. If you remember how the Saints got screwed a few years ago in the playoffs, that's how bad that call was.
The T. Higgins one?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's
would
right
equate that
there.
to
It's single coverage. I don't
I would
know.
equate that to the same outrageous non-call as the call with the Saints a few years ago. You remember that game, right? When they threw the
The
screen
NFC
pass to
Championship
Kamara?
game when the Rams went last
Yeah.
time and got their brains
Right.
beat in by Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
Right. Then when they lost 13-3, that was the season when the Saints got robbed. Those calls are gonna, unfortunately, they're gonna happen, but they do even out. And that's what when the Bengals got that non-call for the touchdown, I was thinking about the fact that and I was rooting for the Rams. I have to admit, I was thinking about the fact that when the Rams got that call against the Saints, it's they do end up evening out eventually. It's funny how that happens, but that was legitimately offensive pass interference on Cincinnati, no question. And none of those calls were bad calls against the Bengals in the last 2 minutes of the game. The referees brought out the whistles and started making the calls because they had to. They didn't want to have a situation where they were going to get blamed if the Rams lost the game for not calling holding and pass interference and all that sort of thing.
Especially when they're textbook calls that they've been called all year and they've been instructed see, a lot of people don't realize the NFL dictates to the referee how they want the game called.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They clearly didn't want a lot of penalties called yesterday.
And
they wanted
there's
them
an
to
egregious holding
let them play.
If there's an egregious holding play by Eli Apple down at the goal line in the last 2 minutes of the game, and that doesn't get called because the ref wants to, keep the whistle in his pocket because he doesn't think that's a penalty, then the ref gets fired. And don't forget, this is a super crew for the Super Bowl. So this is the best referees of the whole season get put together for this game. And I think the refs did a tremendous job. We're not only people who lost money, which I don't even know how you lost money on Cincinnati because they covered the spread. So I know Joe Burrow, America's sweetheart, and I love Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be a great player for a long time, but America's sweetheart, Joe Burrow, doesn't go his way in the end, which was, it didn't go his way for a lot of reasons. We'll get into that in a few minutes here. But, get over it. Only the losers blame refs. And if you had Cincinnati money line, I don't know what to tell you.
Listen,
subscribe to the membership and maybe
the Bengals had the ball with 1 minute and 25 seconds to go and 3 timeouts. Okay? So they had more than ample opportunity to get into field goal range. So I don't want to hear word one. The Rams defense said when the Bengals got to midfield, the Rams defense said, "That's it. You're done."
Rob Povia,
they didn't allow anything after that. That was it.
Rob Povia, Hockey Happy Hour. Check it out here at ATD Radio every Tuesday night. He disagrees to the poll. He doesn't think Matthew Stafford's a Hall of Famer. Says it's tough. The ring helps, but only 1 Pro Bowl and still under 50,000 yards. He may get there one day, but not yet.
Rob, he's only 5. He's 5 yards away.
I get it.
49,995. He is going to be playing next season, right?
Yeah, I think
he hasn't retired, has he?
I don't know if his contract's up, but the Rams, I read this morning that the Rams are working to, lock him up, give him a little contract extension.
He's not going anywhere, and he's not going to retire. His first pass next season, he will surpass 50,000 yards. He's at 49. We just did this at the beginning of the show. Matthew Stafford has passed for 49,995 lifetime yards. So he's going to have 50,000 yards passing. If he sticks around for another 3 years, he has a chance. He'll have a chance to get 60,000. So I would say that he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Maybe not in the first round, but he's gonna do it because of the number of touchdown passes, the total yardage, and that ring and that drive at the end of the game. That drive to me was as far as that was a signature career drive for Matthew Stafford at the end of that game.
And Blue City Empire Sports, check us on YouTube like he does each and every week. I mean, he's obviously Blue City Empire. I mean, he's clearly got a New York slant. He wants to throw out all the quarterbacks that Eli Manning beat. Okay, that's fine. Let's give Matthew Stafford a few more years with McVay in LA, and let's see how many quarterbacks he beats. It's going to be easier for him because he's in the weaker conference.
I agree with you about Eli Manning. Blue City Empire Sports. I agree with you 100%. I'm a Giant fan, so I agree with you 100%. So you don't have to convince me, okay? But again, I don't think to keep arguing about it is silly. I think it's a dumb argument. I think that Eli Manning is clearly going to be, and I think Matthew Stafford is clearly going to be it. I mean, he's done what he's been able to do, and even before this year, really with a team that has not been very good. He couldn't get a lot of win. He certainly couldn't win a lot of games because the team was so lousy. Never had a running game. What he did have, of course, was Megatron, who was one of the great all-time receivers, which doesn't hurt at all. But that's it. I mean, you still have to give him credit for that.
Yeah, I mean,
and he's always, when he came out, I believe he was a first-round pick. He's had a rocket for an arm, and he's done what he's had to do.
Yeah, first overall pick in 2008 out of Georgia.
Yeah, I don't know what I think sometimes you guys get hung up on team records and not understanding how good some of these quarterbacks are, in spite of the fact that they're on lousy teams. I mean, if you want to really get the classic great quarterback who played on a horrible team his whole career. The senior Manning, Archie Manning, who was quarterback for the Saints. That team was terrible, but he was a great quarterback. Just wrong place, wrong time.
And then Blue City Empire Sports, we had non-QB Super Bowl MVP, which I think is great for the sport, by the way, because I think quarterbacks get, they get a lot of credit. They also get blame when things don't go wrong. So it's a two-way street there for sure, but Cooper Kupp wins the MVP. I thought it should have been Aaron Donald. If I were filling out like a Cy Young or Hall of Fame ballot for the MVP yesterday, Cooper Kupp would have been third on my list. I thought Donald changed the game, had much more of an impact on the game than Cooper Kupp did, and I thought Matthew Stafford had a much more impact on the Rams winning than Cooper Kupp did. But Cooper Kupp,
I think they got it right. I thought Cooper Kupp really, what he was able to do yesterday, especially on that last drive when they knew that the ball was going to get to, when the plan was they were going to throw the ball almost every time to him. That was just remarkable, and I do think they got it right. You could definitely make the argument for Donald, and you could definitely make the argument for Stafford. I thought all three of them were great, and I thought it was a coin flip either way on all three of them. To be honest with you,
I think that Cooper Kupp kind of got a season culmination award as well with the Super Bowl MVP because it's one of the greatest receiving seasons we've ever seen. I mean, just under 2,000 yards receiving, a bunch of catches, touchdowns. Like he did it from week one to the Super Bowl. And, that's probably the tiebreaker really, when you look at like when you're splitting hairs like that. So yeah. And a non-quarterback. Cause and I think this draft is going to be telling because I think everyone agrees that, there's no lock, surefire quarterback in this draft. So it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be a market correction on how these guys are picked in the draft. So, I mean, we'll see. And maybe it starts with Cooper Kupp winning a Super Bowl MVP because the way these guys get picked and regarded around the league is, especially in the draft process, is a little aggressive, in my opinion.
It's going to be listen, it's tough when a quarterback doesn't win the award. It's always going to be tough because they're the ones that always have to make things happen all the time. It usually requires a super effort for a non-quarterback to win a MVP award. But what Cooper Kupp was able to do yesterday after Odell Beckham got hurt was just remarkable. I mean, he was basically getting double. He was getting triple teamed at times I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how much attention they paid to him. Cincinnati did all they could to stop Cooper Kupp, and they just couldn't do it.
And Greg Milakovic, catch Greg here on Sunday nights. Agree to disagree. Also part of A2D Wednesday nights. Check him out. He absolutely agrees with the poll. In his opinion, it was already borderline, if not already in, but the Super Bowl win cements him as a Hall of Famer. I thought his legacy got cemented when he knocked out Brady. And he beat Brady the way that Brady has sent so much of his competition home, over the past 20 years.
Well,
So,
my opinion was that drive at the end of the game cemented it for him.
But, I mean, he's been doing that for years.
In relative anonymity, unfortunately, for him.
So, yeah, I mean, he's been doing that for years. And it's Stafford.
Listen, I always liked Matt Stafford. You know that. I always liked him as a quarterback. He's always been very, very good.
Now, how about his no-look pass? How about his no-look pass to Cooper Kupp on the last drive?
He just knew he was
He's looking nowhere. He's looking nowhere near. There's Patrick Mahomes, slings it. Look, I don't know. I don't really like. I just don't understand why this guy can't. Everyone just can't latch on to this guy and give him his credit. I mean, this should be a unanimous agree. I don't understand how you can look at Matthew Stafford, his body of work over 13 seasons, and say that if he quit tomorrow, if he has a press conference tomorrow and says that he's done, that he's not going to be in camp one day. I don't understand. John Malmo's defense. We all need to realize the Eagles need so much on defense and still need a second wide receiver and a tight end. First off, you don't need a tight end. You have Dallas Goedert. Okay. And, I think just a quick Eagles point before we get into some of these other comments regarding the Super Bowl. I don't think the Eagles roster is as bare as Philadelphia Eagles fans make it out to be. I really don't. They don't have a quarterback. Jalen Hurts stinks. You think Jalen Hurts has the tools to grow into a Matthew Stafford or a Joe Burrow over the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, I don't know what NFL you're watching because that doesn't project on my television. And when I'm at the games watching them.
He doesn't have the arm. I mean, he's more like RG3, and RG3, look at how RG3 turned out.
With the way the NFC landscape is about to change, and we're going to talk about this when we get into some offseason stuff on topic number 2 or topic number 3. It's about to – if you get a quarterback here in Philadelphia with Devontae Smith and Goddard and you hit on a couple draft picks and, you do some things, rework your cap and get a couple veterans in here, the Eagles can be a very, very good football team next year. But if you're gonna string yourself along, Brad, if you're gonna string along Jalen Hurts for another year, a quarterback who just doesn't have it, not a franchise quarterback, not going to win you a Super Bowl, doesn't have the tools to develop into a franchise quarterback, I think Eagles fans are going to be disappointed. So lights, camera, action is on Howie Roseman to get a quarterback in here.
The NFC will be up for grabs next year.
Tom Arnone.
I think you can pretty much say that. Whatever GM is able to make some moves this year, it's going to be up for grabs. I don't think that the Rams are not built for next year. They were built for this year.
Yeah, but they're still going to have a lot of good players next year.
They are, but they're not going to have Andrew. What the hell's his last name?
Whitworth. Yeah, I would imagine he'll retire.
Yeah, he's not going to be there. Odell Beckham's not going to be there. Brooks, I don't know if Brooks is going to be there either. So they're clearly going to be deficient and they're going to be deficient in some areas. I mean, Miller's not getting any younger. Donald may or may not be there next year.
Yeah, there's no doubt. The Rams sold out to win.
Yeah, they won. They did what we beg our teams to do. Go out, be aggressive, and bring the guys in that you need to bring in to win a championship. That's you got to give them a ton of credit because in a hard cap league, it's tough to win. It's tough to win a championship. You've got to sometimes you got to mortgage the future to try to get the ring.
Thomas Arnone, he agrees to the poll. The Grand Poobah here at A2D Radio. His numbers are good enough prior to the Super Bowl. Now he's got a Super Bowl. Dude's a lock.
And if you're
I
worried
agree.
about 50,000 yards, he'll get it next year.
Now, Bryce,
His first pass of next season will give him 50,000 yards. He's got 49,995.
and then Bryce Blackwell, he's checking us out on YouTube tonight. What's up, Bryce? Chase was wide open on 4th and 1 at the end of the game. Yeah, he was, but Joe Burrow is giving Aaron Donald piggyback rides the whole second half, so that prevents you from getting the football down the field.
Yeah, that's Joe Burrow. You can't blame. Listen, I think that the Bengals should have run the ball in that particular spot. I don't really understand the call. I didn't like the call. I thought they should have
on 4th and 1.
Yeah,
but it's nut cutting time,
and
you have Joe Burrow, a franchise quarterback, and you have great playmakers around him. You got to put the ball in Burrow's hands.
Rob, yeah, exactly. Now, my whole thing was, I thought when they spread him out like that, I said to myself, this is going to be a quarterback draw, and he'll get it because he's a really good runner. But again, I don't know how badly hurt he was. He may have been pretty badly dinged yesterday by the end of the game. Maybe he wasn't capable, but I thought that he should have tried to do a quarterback draw. I think he would have gotten the yard because they spread it out. They really spread it out. I mean, they were trying to, and the problem was that it got to a point where he just had no time at all to pass. The Rams started overloading the left side, putting 3 guys on the left side, and the Bengals couldn't adjust to it.
The Bengals had plenty of time. Bob Brinkman had plenty of time. Should have been able to tie the Rams and send it to OT. They had to know the Rams were coming after them. Look, I don't have a problem with how the Bengals handled the last drive. I really don't.
No,
they need a better offensive line, and that should be their main focus.
The Rams defense stood up again, like they have every week, every game in the playoffs this playoff season. The Rams defense, when it was most important, played their best, and that's just as simple as that. Cincinnati's defense, for the most part, until yesterday at the end of the game, stood up and did the same thing to Kansas City the week before, 2 weeks before. So that's kind of what happened there. And the Cincinnati defense stood tall against Tennessee, and they also stood tall against the Raiders. They just couldn't stop Stafford, and they couldn't stop Cooper Kupp. Give them credit where credit is due. Just a great game, and really we were very blessed to have 7 incredible playoff games this year. Really, this playoff season was just awesome. There are some really great games.
And I have data here, related to 2020. Like, in the 10 years, 2010 to 2020, Matthew Stafford, the most game-winning drives in the whole NFL. So he's been doing this stuff for years, with the last-minute drives and the comebacks. Does nobody care? Because great, you came back and you beat the Vikings on a game-winning drive. Great, now you're 5-10 instead of 4-11. Who cares? No one cares.
Yeah, that was the whole point with Stafford. It really wasn't. It wasn't his fault. They just didn't. The Lions just don't have enough talent.
I mean, Chris Wilson on YouTube, he wasn't impressed with the Rams yesterday. I don't understand how that can be your narrative after watching that game. Look, the Rams, they ponied up over the last couple of years, shelling out big money and spending their draft picks to get stars to LA to do what they did last night. And all those stars stepped up and they pulled their weight. And that's why the Rams won. So you're not impressed with that, I'm not quite sure. But to each their own. I mean, the only star that really didn't have like a lockdown superb game was, I guess, Jalen Ramsey. But even I'll counter that with, he got his head torn off on the touchdown he did let up.
Right.
So,
you can't blame him. And you can't blame him for that. I mean, that in any other game other than the Super Bowl, that would have been called offensive pass interference.
Joseph Orkovsky, he got boned on his squares there. And I was thinking about you, Joe, because you chimed into the rant booth yesterday with your 3-0 block, and I was just watching the game with someone who had the 3-0 block. So you needed a Bengals touchdown at the end of the half there to maybe win. And then the final was pretty close to that as well. So, yeah, tough. Should have taken the Bengals plus 4.5 instead of playing blocks, which is just arbitrary and all luck. There's Evan Taylor in the house. The Rosca's on cloud 9. Obviously, our resident LA fan. I'm sure he's over the moon with his Rams winning a championship. Aaron Donald will not retire. I mean, I don't really know where that story came from, but
he said that in the heat of the moment before the game. Before the game, if they win, I'll retire. He's not that old for him to go ahead and retire. I mean, it doesn't usually happen that way. He's got a chance. He's still in his prime. There's no reason for him to do that.
So, yeah, I kind of agree with that. So I didn't see that he said that. I guess that's where the story came from.
He did, but I don't believe he's. He didn't. I don't think you can hold him to that. He's going to play next year.
He's a dominant player.
Right.
That's why I'm shocked Brady left. Well, I still don't believe Brady's retired.
Yeah, I'm not buying it either. But again, I'm also the first one that kept saying Andrew Luck was going to come back, and he never came back. So what do I know?
I mean, I think Tom Brady's wired a little different than Andrew Luck, with respect to Andrew Luck, who was a really good player. But
Andrew Luck also took an unbelievable beating in his career, which Tom Brady did not.
So, now 31 teams enter the NFL offseason, chasing the Los Angeles Rams. That brings us to our next topic, a little offseason preview for you, because we're not going to have football until really, I guess, free agency or the draft. I don't remember which comes first. But our offseason preview brought to you by Alan Foyt, eXp Realty, 302-682-8820. Visit him at alan.foyt, eXp Realty, if you're buying to sell our home or looking for a career change or brokerage change. But a lot of moving parts are going to be in play this offseason. You look at the draft, you have, 4 teams really that hold a lot of cards when it comes to the first round of the draft, with the Giants, the Jets, the Eagles, and the Lions, all with multiple first-round picks. You have an NFC that's wide open, potentially, depending on what Aaron Rodgers does. And that brings me to Kyler Murray, Brad, in Arizona. We got a little Instagram gate, a little social media gate. Kyler Murray doesn't seem to be too happy with the Arizona Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals don't seem to be too happy with Kyler Murray. Reports coming out via Chris Mortensen that, Kyler Murray is a little bit immature, a little bit of a baby, did a lot of finger pointing after the Rams beat their brains in the wild card Monday night game that we live reacted to right here on the Sports Hounds.
That was a pretty severe beating, that game.
He did. I mean, that's what the Rams did to quarterbacks over the whole.
Yep. Yeah, they did.
Look, I don't think that Kyler Murray is going to get traded. I think that would be a foolish move for the Arizona Cardinals, because you see a skill set there in Kyler Murray that could potentially rival the skill sets of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Herbert, the whole thing. He's super athletic. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's a little short.
He's just short. That's the problem. But Drew Brees was short too, And,
if Kyler Murray is going to enter the fray of Kyler Murray, to me, is a legitimate franchise quarterback. He's got 2 years. The reason I don't think it's going to happen is because the Cardinals have 2
years left in his rookie contract.
So that you get him cheap and you're able to build around him to the best of your ability.
Oh, the Cardinals are going to want 2 to 3 first-round picks for him.
I would trade all 3 of them. I would trade all 3 of the Eagles' first-round picks to the Arizona Cardinals for Kyler Murray.
He's also young. I mean, that guy.
All 3 of them.
I wouldn't mind seeing the Giants try to make a move on him.
15, 16, 19 for Kyler Murray. Cool. I'll do that, because in no way do I want to see Jalen Hurts under center for the Philadelphia Eagles next year. He's not good enough. I'm not going to kid myself for another year in thinking that Jalen Hurts is going to mature into this all-world franchise quarterback. I'm just not playing that game.
That depends on what Howie and Laurie, what's his name, Lowry?
Jeffrey Lurie, the owner.
Lurie. That depends on what those two guys think, because that's ultimately going to be their call. And do they want to keep him, or do they want to try to get draft another quarterback? That's another option. I don't think drafting another quarterback in this year's draft is the answer, to be honest with you. If you're trying to get to the playoffs and make a big run, it's pretty tough to do it with a rookie quarterback. That happens very infrequently, to say the least. I mean, even when a rookie quarterback has a big year, anybody mentioned Mac Jones, it just doesn't happen all that often. It's because, in the playoffs now, all of a sudden you're playing the best of the best, and your warts tend to come out, especially when you're a rookie and they throw stuff at you that you've never seen before. It's tough. So I would think that if they're going to do something, it would be via the trade route.
Yeah, you have Aaron Rodgers. He bought property in Nashville. Titans might be looking to make a move at quarterback. I mean, if you bring in Aaron Rodgers, you got to bring in Aaron Rodgers. You owe it to your fan base, your players in your locker room, and your franchise to bring in a guy like Aaron Rodgers if he wants to come there. Shakes loose Ryan Tannehill for a potential quarterback upgrade in Philadelphia. Jimmy Garoppolo
Does Garoppolo leave? I think it would be a mistake for San Francisco to go to Trey Lance right away.
But they're going to at some point. You understand
they will,
that,
but
right?
They don't. Yeah, I don't think that they necessarily have to do it next season, though. They might. I just don't know that guy's ready. And
I would maybe agree. I would maybe agree with you if they didn't trade all that capital to go up and get.
I understand that, but when you lose in the NFC Championship game, unless you're upgrading a quarterback, you can't make that move yet. I mean, you owe it to the players on that team to put the best product on the field. And Trey Lance, unless he steps up a lot during the summer and in the off season and improves dramatically, I don't see how he's going to be the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, they're a championship level team now, and you're going to put a rookie quarterback in there who has not really seen the light of day as far as seeing pro defenses. You're going to put him in there in that situation. He wasn't very good when he had the chance last year. Garoppolo did a nice job. I know Garoppolo is not a star, but Garoppolo is a winning quarterback.
I think that goes on.
It's
winning is a skill set.
It's a tough call for the 49ers. Really is. But if I'm the 49ers right now.
But it's really not, because didn't John Lynch pretty much say that we don't think we can get to the next level with Jimmy Garoppolo and win a championship by trading all that for Trey Lance?
I think he wanted another option. But, you can always leave. You can always start the season with Garoppolo on the team. And if Lance can beat him out and get there, then fine. If he can't, then the better quarterback should play. You can't go handing out an opportunity to somebody until they prove they can handle it. And right now, unless they plan on making a trade, I don't see that happening. I don't see Green Bay or Seattle trading their quarterbacks to the San Francisco 49ers. I don't see that at all.
And then you have Deshaun Watson, who I think we're going to get some news on in March, from what I understand.
Deshaun Watson is another story. Now, if they got Deshaun Watson to be their quarterback, then all bets are off.
I'm just talking about quarterbacks. I don't know who's going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I think it's going to be Trey Lance. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be there, because you have
Jimmy Garoppolo is signed, though, isn't he?
Yeah, he's signed. He's got 1 year left, and I think I read the dead cap money was like $4 million. So it's going to be easy for them to move him.
No. I realized that it would be easy for them to move him. I'm just saying, but will they? And should they?
I think the writing's on the wall. I think the writing's been on the wall since the last draft when they picked Trey Lance.
But then who's going to be the backup quarterback there?
Well, you get a quarter. You get a backup.
Well, why don't you keep Jimmy Garoppolo in case you need a backup? That's
when
why,
you look at all these quarterback, just these teams that they don't have quarterbacks. There's not a lot of good quarterback play in the NFL. It's just the way it is. The Eagles need a quarterback. The Giants need a quarterback. San Francisco or Tampa Bay needs a quarterback. If Rodgers leaves, Green Bay is going to need a quarterback. The Colts are talking about releasing Carson Wentz because they're sick of him and the way he lost that Jacksonville game. You have Kyler Murray, disgruntled in Arizona. Russell Wilson can easily force his way out of Seattle if he chooses to do so. Kyler Murray's disgruntled. I think Derek Carr is safe. I think we could throw that rumor out with Josh McDaniels going out. Derek
Carr isn't going anywhere. They want to keep him from what I've heard.
And why would you not? I never really understood the rumor.
Yeah, I don't either. The last 2 seasons, Derek Carr had a reputation for being soft, and he was for a while. But you know what? The last couple of years, he's been just outstanding. There's no reason at this point to get rid of him. I can't imagine why they would do that.
Roshka says
sure
Jimmy
almost
G.
Any team would love to have him.
You know, Pittsburgh needs a quarterback. That's a ready to go roster there in Pittsburgh.
I think Pittsburgh drafts Kenny Pickett. That's just my opinion.
It sounds like Tomlin really wants this kid Malik Willis.
So the kid from Liberty?
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out.
Ooh,
if you're going to battle with Mason Rudolph, all due respect to Mason Rudolph, in that division with the Bengals, the Browns, and the Ravens, I don't care how good your surrounding roster is. I don't think you stand a chance.
No, I would agree. And
so they're going to be looking to do something.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised though if they're not able to make a trade. I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to pick up Pickett. I understand the guy from Liberty, but it's Liberty. Who did they play in college?
Yeah, the only thing I can counter with that is Malik Willis was an Auburn recruit.
Okay, but did he ever play?
No, because they fell in love with the hometown kid down there. His name was Bo Nix, who was pretty average in the games that I saw, at least of Auburn. Never really did anything. So he took his ball to Liberty, and that's what guys do.
No, I understand. And look, there's been, it's well known that there have been guys who have transferred to smaller schools and were just fine, and then they ended up being pretty good quarterbacks. So you could take one example from the New York Giants, Phil Simms. I mean, Morehead State. Not exactly your household college football program. He ended up being pretty darn good.
Yeah, there's a bunch of guys like that. Yeah. Tony Romo didn't even get drafted.
Exactly. I mean, and Brady was a 6th round pick.
Kurt Warner went to Northern Iowa. He stocked groceries.
Yeah, exactly.
So it can happen.
Can it happen? Yes, it can. I just don't know though, Rob.
And then you have the New Orleans Saints, who I think are going to be a big factor in this offseason. They're $60 million over the cap, and they have no quarterback.
I think
so. Are they going to be dumping guys like Marcus Williams? They're all pro safety. Are they going to be dumping Marquise Lattimore? Damn good corner.
Them, but they're not going to be able. They're going to have to get rid of a lot of guys. What about Kamara? He might be gone too.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but I mean,
I'd be dumping Kamara before I'm dumping an all-pro safety and an all-pro quarterback. I think that would be foolish. I think they'd be better off if they're going to do something like that. They trade him.
And then you have Calvin Ridley, pretty good talent down there in Atlanta. He kind of took the season off because of mental health issues. I hope everything's okay and he can return to the field. But, is he going to shake loose from Atlanta? It doesn't sound like he likes it so much down there. That's a guy that can potentially be on a new team. Michael Thomas as well. We just talked about the Saints. I didn't mention Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas is definitely going to be on another team because he's a he's been showing some Antonio Brown type tendencies the last couple of seasons.
You shouldn't compare anybody in the league to Antonio Brown. That guy's a lunatic.
I understand that, but he has been showing some signs of being very strange the last couple of years.
Well, he butted heads with the medical staff. He didn't agree with he had his hurt ankle or hurt foot. I forget exactly what he hurt, and the team was trying to get him to do one thing, and Michael Thomas wasn't about it. Wanted to get a second opinion and wanted to do things his own way, and the Saints gave him a bunch of shit for it, and that's where the crux went between them, I think. So I mean, there's obvious bad blood between the Saints and Michael Thomas. It'll be interesting to see that if the bad blood was because of Sean Payton, kind of a douche, comes off as one. I don't know him, obviously, but he comes off that way. And the way he kind of left there it was kind of douchey a little bit, at least in my opinion. You see that you're $60 million over the cap and you got no quarterback because your golden boy Taysom Hill, who you give all this money to, can't hack it as a franchise quarterback, and you just up and leave. I mean, I got a little problem.
That's hard. That's kind of hard to. That's hard to pinpoint that with Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill broke his finger, so that was a problem.
I mean, do you think Taysom Hill's going to be a franchise quarterback in this league?
I think he deserves another look.
I think he's going to get one because without really any salary capital with your cap, unless you draft one, you're probably boxed. I guess you could bring back Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a cheap deal. I think Taysom Hill is going to get another look.
So
again, he broke his finger, so that kind of killed him.
David Roska, or let's go Bryce Blackwell, Watson Wilson, Jimmy G, possibly David Carr will be available, and looks like Wentz too. Throw out Derek Carr. Derek Carr not available.
Derek Carr is not going to be available.
You think Josh McDaniels is going to take that job and ship off Derek Carr? I mean, at one point in this season, Derek Carr led the league in passing yards. I don't know who. I guess Rodgers ultimately won that title. But, I mean, I was never buying that. No. David Roska, how about Matt Ryan? Guy needs a Super Bowl ring. I don't think he's going to get one.
At the age of 39?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get one.
He's going to be going into his age 39 season. I mean, you're asking an awful lot from a guy like that.
And then I wanted to talk about Joe Burrow, too. Not really off-season related, but, we have Mike Marshall in the comments say that Joe Burrow is better than Stafford. And, okay, I guess I can kind of sort of agree with this. But all week leading up to the Super Bowl, I saw a lot of talking heads on TV, on the dial and various TV stations saying that if they could pick one quarterback over the next 10 years, it would be Joe Burrow. And I almost fell out of my chair that the love and the pedestal this guy got put on way too early. He's a very promising player, but over the next 10 years, if you're taking Joe Burrow over Mahomes or Josh Allen, like I'm not about that at all. I would put Joe Burrow third on that list.
Maybe fourth. Don't forget Herbert. I like Herbert.
So do I, but I would take Joe Burrow over the next 10 years over Herbert, I think.
I'll tell you what, that last drive that he had against the Raiders, I know that the Raiders won that game against the Chargers to make the playoffs, but that last drive he had to lead them down the field to tie up that football game, that Sunday night game,
right?
That was the stuff legends are made of, that drive.
Yeah, it's shame that his head coach.
How many fourth down conversions did he have on that drive? Like 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I mean, that was that. Yeah, listen. If the Giants had him, I'd be so happy. Justin Herbert is going to be a big-time quarterback.
Absolutely, but I think I would put Herbert fourth, just behind Joe Burrow.
That's fair. All 4 of those quarterbacks are big-time quarterbacks, and they could start. They could start basically on any team in the NFC right now, except maybe Green Bay.
And then fifth, you got Dak in the mix for fifth, and Kyler Murray in the mix there.
I take Russ over those guys.
Okay, fair. Even at 33 for the next 10 years.
Oh, for the next 10 years,
right?
I mean, Russ probably has 5 good years left if he's lucky.
Yeah, 32, 33. I mean, look, Stafford's
32,
what,
33.
36, 37?
I mean, I think you can get him up to 36, 37, Russ.
So you're going to put Russ over Dak and Kyler Murray
Right now, I would, yeah.
for the next 10 years? Okay.
Yeah, because I listen, I'm not as sold on Dak as everybody else is. Dak is still the same quarterback who can't throw the ball to the sidelines all that efficiently. He's still a great going down the middle guy. But what has Dak ever done in the playoffs?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Nothing. Just like the rest of his loser squad there down in Dallas.
Exactly. That's the whole point. And Dak has a plethora of talent around him.
But like, look at that. Like the Rams are uber talented and Dallas is uber talented. But when push comes to shove, the guys the Rams played, the stars the Rams have that are in LA, they step up and get it done. And Dallas, year after year after year after year, falls short.
Well, they never raised their level of play in a big spot. That's simple. You got guys like Von Miller, who's a Super Bowl champion, who's played on a great defense. When you're bringing guys like that, the leadership qualities that you're bringing to the table, when you bring guys like that to your football team, it can't be understated. It just can't be.
And yeah, Bryce Blackwell, I totally agree with you. There's going to be a lot of player movement this offseason. A lot of player movement. And some of the player movement.
I think you're going to see a lot of trades this offseason.
Yeah, and it starts with the most important position in pro sports. I think a lot of quarterbacks are going to be on new teams next year.
I agree.
It can shift the landscape of the league very quickly.
And what quarterbacks that aren't necessarily quarterbacks that you find all that great right now, are any of them going to step up next year and become stars? Because there's always a couple.
Like who? Like who would you think that a breakout candidate could be at the quarterback position? Daniel Jones. You gonna say Daniel Jones?
Maybe Daniel Jones. Maybe Hurts. I don't know. You never know with these guys. As I said, you never know who's gonna break out and all of a sudden play up to their potential and put some money on the board and put some fannies in the seats. You never know. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it, Rob. That's what makes football so.
I'll tell you what. If Jalen Hurts comes out next year, no one will be happier than me if Jalen Hurts comes out and lights the world on fire next year.
Who's going to quarterback the Colts next year?
Great question. I think Chris Ballard, the Colts GM, is about ready to strangle Carson Wentz.
He's not going to be there next year. I can tell you that.
I think you're right. And I don't know where Carson. I don't know where Carson goes if he's not on.
Oh, somebody will take him.
Somebody will take him because there's not a lot of good quarterbacks. But I mean, talk about having a stench on you.
Oh, I agree.
We'll talk about some Tom Arnone stench talk. I mean, there's no bigger guy in maybe professional football that's got a bigger stench on him than Carson Wentz right now. They're not going to be able to. I'll tell you one thing, Brad. They're not going to be able to trade him.
No, they'll probably move on from him. I think
you better have a play because Carson Wentz is a skilled player. He can make all the throws. So if you're going to go outright release Carson Wentz, you better have a plan because you have all the pieces there in Indianapolis outside of a quarterback, in my opinion.
Well, somebody is going to pick him up. I mean, now the Washington, whatever they're called now,
Commanders. We don't call them the football team anymore.
They're going to try to pick up. They're going to try to pick up somebody, unless they decide that they're going to go with Heineke, who is a nice story, but I don't know that he's necessarily going to be the man.
If Russ isn't in Philadelphia, he's going to be in Washington, in my opinion.
That's a very good. That's an interesting thought.
And that'll be a problem for the NFC East because the Commanders add Wilson. They're right there with Dallas. Just like if the Eagles add Wilson, they're right there with Dallas too.
I agree with you. Although all I would say though about Heineke is not that bad.
Okay, the fact that you have to say he's not that bad at the beginning of your argument means he ain't it. He's not a franchise quarterback.
Listen,
You have to have a
real
franchise
good
quarterback
run.
in this league.
He did go out and beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
When?
I mean, he was playing pretty well, and then he got sick. First he got injured, and then he got sick, and that's kind of when that happened. The Commanders went down the drain, but they were looking good for a while, and then it all fell apart on them.
Look, if you want to go to battle with guys like Taylor Heineke and Jalen Hurts and tell me you have a chance to win a championship after what you saw this postseason, then you're out of your mind.
But again, you're only talking about guys who played for a couple of years. They've both shown signs of brilliance, but again, I don't know that they have the tools to do it.
That you just answered your own question. They don't have the tools to raise their level of play to Mahomes, Burrow, Stafford.
Well, they're
Brady,
not going to be.
Rodgers.
They're not going to be as good as those guys. Okay, Washington. One thing about Washington does have good skill players. They got a lot of good skill players on their team. If they really got themselves a top quality, top notch quarterback, like even a Deshaun Watson, they'd be a dangerous team. See, I could see Deshaun Watson going there before I see anybody else going there, quite honestly.
Maybe. Well, I think Deshaun Watson is
going
to be somewhere.
I hope that doesn't happen, but I could see that.
We'll see. There's going to be a lot of moving and shaking this offseason, from free agency to the draft to everything. Because with all these quarterbacks reportedly available, teams are going to be chomping at the bit because there's not any good quarterbacks in this draft. There's no doubt about it, prospects in this draft like there was last year with Trevor Lawrence.
No, there's some. A lot of these guys are very, very questionable. So we'll see.
Let's talk some basketball. We had a big trade here in Philadelphia. Big trade deadline is come and gone. Ben Simmons is not on the Sixers anymore. Thank God. We don't have to talk about him. This is the last time I will talk about Ben Simmons unless there is a Nets-Sixers showdown in the playoffs. Obviously, Ben Simmons is going to be traveling to Philadelphia March 10th. All Sixers fans have that date circled on their calendar, but I wouldn't count on
if he's ready to play.
I wouldn't count on Ben Simmons playing in that game at all. He's going to be too scared.
Well, if he's ready to play, he also has to get in game shape and learn their system as well. So I don't know how.
According to reports, he's chomping at the bit to play basketball.
Okay, he's chomping at the bit, but he also has to get himself in basketball shape.
Okay, but how do you get yourself in basketball shape, Brad? What do you have to do?
You have to practice.
Practice and play basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So just throw him out there. Put him on a minutes restriction. That's how you get him in basketball shape.
Well, but Rob, how many was he even practicing when he was with the Sixers? Was he going to practice every day?
He didn't do jack nothing when he was with the Sixers.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's going to take. He's going to have to go. He's going to have to go in there and practice with the team and get himself in shape.
Well,
and then
he's going to be on the court very soon for the Brooklyn Nets. They had a game tonight. I would imagine Ben Simmons.
He's not playing tonight.
Isn't playing because I'm sure my phone would have blown up with alerts. But did these other guys play?
That I don't know.
Drummond's in.
I'd be shocked if either one of the – listen, that trade, and I'm going to tell you right now, I know the Sixers fans all think that they got they swiped him. Brooklyn got robbed, blah, 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 blah. The Sixers made a good trade, but so did the Nets. The Nets right now, you have to look at it this way. They lost Harris probably for the season. So now they pick up Curry. So instead of Joe Harris, who's their big shooter off the wing, now they got Curry. Okay, so that's something that's going to help. They needed somebody who could play defense and stop these point guards from just getting unlimited runs to the basket. So they get Simmons. And they get Drummond, who's a good solid center. Is he Joel Embiid? No, he's not Joel Embiid, but he's he's pretty good. And then they get 2 first-round picks. They did pretty well considering they're trading a star. You're not going to get equal value. We all know that. But I think they got a pretty good haul, and I think they're going to be if they make the playoffs, they're going to be a dangerous team in the playoffs because they'll get Durant back. Hopefully for them, Kyrie will either get his shot or New York will allow him to play home games. And I think Brooklyn's not going to be an easy team. I think it'd be an awful lot of fun to see Philly and the Nets in a playoff series. Boy, oh boy, that would be fun. But
yeah,
again,
and our NBA, real quick, our NBA talk tonight, brought to you by Manscaped. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code A2D. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. So in case you're living under a rock and you didn't realize that Ben Simmons got traded, so Ben Simmons goes to the Nets along with Andre Drummond, Seth Curry, and 2 first-round picks. The Sixers get James Harden, the best player in the trade, and they get Paul Millsap as a throwing guy. And Paul Millsap's going to play for this basketball team because Andre Drummond was your backup big, and you need a guy to spell Joe for at least some minute. I mean, Joe can't play 48 minutes a game leading into the playoffs, and I hate when guys take maintenance days in the NBA, but you can't just run Joe into the ground because you traded Drummond. Like, Paul Millsap's going to play, and Paul Millsap's a solid veteran. But Brad, what have I been saying for weeks and months here on these airwaves at A2D Radio? I've been saying it's impossible to win a trade in the NBA if you do not receive the best player, which the Sixers did. Therefore, they won the trade. Now, if you want to be – and Daryl Morey did a great job. I didn't think he had it in him. I thought he had his head in the clouds thinking he was going to get a Beal or a Lillard or a Harden for a bum. That's what he is. He's a bum, mental bum in Ben Simmons, number 25 from Australia. And get a guy like James Harden without giving up Tyrese Maxey or Thibault. I thought Sixers fans had their Sixers glasses on. I thought Daryl Morey was out of his mind. I didn't think it was ever in a billion, gajillion years going to happen. But it did. And I was wrong. And I'm the biggest Sixers hater. I'm the biggest skeptic of this stupid process that's been perpetrated on this fan base forever.
Window's open now, though.
But, the process, I don't want to say it's complete because they didn't win yet, but this is the best chance they've had to win a championship, a legitimate chance to win a championship in 2019 when Kawhi hit that shot. I think the 2019 was better because you had way more defense. You had Ben, you had Jimmy, you had Tobias, and you had Joe. But now you have Harden and Maxey and Tobias and Joe is way better now than he was in 2019. So we'll call it all a wash. Now, it's not going to be automatic for the Sixers to go to the Eastern Conference Finals or even the NBA Finals or even host a parade because the East is very good. Look, I don't believe in Brook because you can't play 4-on-5 in the NBA playoffs and win. Ben Simmons proved that in Philadelphia time and time again. I don't care how good Kevin Durant is. I don't care how good Kyrie Irving is. If you're playing 4-on-5 like the Sixers did playoff after playoff with that bum Ben Simmons, you're not going to get to where you need to go. And I believe that. So I think the Sixers are a better basketball team than the Nets. And this is even before the Sixers are going to add a couple buys.
The Nets are playing. Right now, the Nets better get themselves back in gear because they're headed for the 11 hole if they don't start playing better.
Yeah, and they are in a tight battle with the Sacramento Kings right now.
And they're not going to get Durant back anytime soon. He's out another month.
And Kyrie Irving can't play.
He can't play home games. Because Kyrie is a big baby and he won't get a shot.
So you can't win a trade in the NBA without receiving the best player. The Sixers did. Daryl Morey did a fantastic job because 99 times out of 100, the longer you wait in these situations, the less you get. But Daryl Morey didn't listen to me. Daryl Morey didn't listen to a lot of people. He held his ground, and he has the Philadelphia 76ers in position to win a championship. So good for him.
The only problem with Harden is the hamstring, and that hamstring has been a problem for Harden since the middle of last season.
Is that why he didn't play last year?
Yeah, the hamstring.
It was his
And
hamstring?
Same one. That hamstring, he injured it. Then he came back, injured it again. Then the Nets shut him down till the playoffs. He came back, played pretty well, but then he injured it yet again. And it took him all summer. When he came back, when the season started, his hamstring was still bothering him, so he was on a minute restriction. Then he started playing again, and then he hurts that same hamstring yet again, and he's been out for at least 3 weeks now. And that's a troublesome situation with him with that hamstring. He's also not the player he was 2-3 years ago. He's very good. I'm not saying he's not, but you're not getting James Harden 2017, 2018. So he's probably.
But Brad, and I get that. Father Time's undefeated. We talk about it here all the time. But at what point do I need to look at this trade? And now I have Ben Simmons on my team.
Well, you don't have to worry about
I have
that.
James Harden on my team instead of Ben Simmons, when Ben Simmons had no interest in playing here, was never going to play.
Well, the fact that he wasn't playing at all, and you're able to bring James Harden in, is obviously a big upgrade, because James Harden is 100 times better than Curry or Drummond. So, and Ben Simmons wasn't playing, so it's obviously a huge upgrade for Philadelphia.
And by the way,
they were already playing real good basketball.
And by the way, I'm a top 3 seed in a good Eastern Conference, getting nothing from a max point guard. Now you're going to give me Harden instead of Simmons, and I'm not supposed to expect this team's going to take off and be legitimate contenders in the Eastern Conference?
Keep in mind, Harden is also a defensive liability, and you guys did say that. Didn't stop reminding me of that last year when I was promoting how good Harden can be. He is a defensive liability.
I agree with that.
There's no question about that. However,
but how good's Ben defense is going to be when he's sitting at home playing video games, petting his cat, and buying NFTs online, and having no interest to play at the Wells Fargo Center for the Philadelphia 76ers?
Well,
you gotta have context. You gotta have context on this argument.
He's not playing. Well, he's not. He hasn't played all season. It's going to take him a while to get himself back in shape and to play. I don't know what's going to go on. What's going to happen.
So now you're getting a guy who's averaging 22, 10, and 8 in James Harden, and you're putting that in the starting lineup really over Seth Curry. Because
this year, yes. However, keep in mind, Ben Simmons did average, 16 points a game? And he was getting a lot of triple-doubles.
It doesn't matter. The bridge was burnt. He was going to average 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists for the rest of his career if he stayed on the Philadelphia 76ers.
Right. No, I understand that. I'm just saying, I'm looking at it from the Nets' point of view, is that they now feel like they can now play defense. They've got a shooter now because they lost Joe Harris for the season in Curry, and now they've got themselves a guy who can play center for them. And Drummond is a good center. He's not Embiid, but then nobody is Embiid, so they got themselves a center now. They should be able to score enough to be able to compete with almost anybody in the league. We'll see what happens.
Pete Evans.
At this point in the East, it's Miami, Philadelphia, and Milwaukee. Not necessarily in that order.
I'm a big Chicago. I'm putting Chicago on that list too.
Well, Chicago couldn't beat Philadelphia before they made this trade.
Okay, but I mean,
so how were they going to?
Okay, the last game the Sixers played against the Bulls, Lonzo Ball and Zach LaVine didn't play, so you're missing your starting backcourt.
Okay, didn't realize that.
I mean, the Bulls, they're in action right now. Let's see if they're.
But the Bulls still have to prove that they can win in the playoffs, and the Sixers are playoff tested.
So do the Sixers.
Huh?
So do the Sixers.
I said the Sixers are playoff tested. The Bulls are not.
I mean, you're playoff tested, but they lose all the time. They fall short of expectations all the time.
They don't lose in the first round. They just haven't been able to get past the second.
Well, I mean,
round.
the Bulls went all in this season. They bring in Lonzo, they bring in DeMar DeRozan, they bring in Vucevic. They already had LaVine, so they loaded up in the offseason,
Okay,
So,
I mean, You can include them. But look, right now the window is wide open for the Sixers. This is the best chance that they've had, and I would say for the next 2 years, this year and next year, they're definitely going to be championship contenders. It's just going to be a question of will they get it done in the playoffs? And the other thing is, will Harden finally peak in the playoffs? Can he get through a whole playoff and play? That's another thing.
Well, I got a counter argument for everything you say negative about this trade from a Sixers standpoint. Last time James Harden played a full slate in the playoffs was, I think it was 2017 when they had the Warriors dead to rights on their home court in Game 7, and his running mate Chris Paul didn't play in Game 7.
Nope, that's right. And everybody blamed Harden, which is ridiculous.
Right. I get it. He wasn't there last year, but neither was Kyrie. And they fall short in the Eastern Conference Finals to Milwaukee.
So we'll see what happens. Listen,
and then for me,
you're now going to be definitely better than the Hawks. So you're not going to have to worry about a team like that beating you. As I said, you have some competition, but they're a very good team now. They really, really are. They have a chance to win a championship. It's up to them now to convert. They've got the best, without argument, the best center in the NBA.
Best player in the NBA. Let's put some respect
maybe the best
on
player
Joel Embiid right now. He's the best player in the NBA. Not even a debate, not even an argument. He's the MVP of the league. He's the best player in the league. He's all world. Let's put some respect on Joel Embiid right now and stop saying that he's one of the best players and start saying he is the best player in the league, because that's what he is.
Well, he's going to have to prove it in the playoffs.
But
that's going to be that. It's no longer about the regular season. It doesn't really matter where the Sixers finish in the regular season. As long as they're in, they've got the talent to win a championship.
That's why I don't care. I don't care when James Harden shows up. James Harden could show up first day of the playoffs and play his first game.
Well, you would hope.
I don't care.
That. I mean, I don't think it's gonna come down to that, and you would hope it doesn't come down to that, because that wouldn't be good.
But if that does happen, and he has to miss a bunch of time down the stretch to get his hamstrings right for the playoffs, that doesn't change my opinion of this team's chances to win a championship one iota. You got the best player in the deal. You're rid of Ben Simmons, and that's got to be a lift on the locker room. Having Ben Simmons, definitely. No one has to talk. No, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, Doc Rivers, Daryl Morey. No one has to talk about Ben Simmons in Philadelphia anymore. He's gone.
Nope.
That's got to be a weight lifted off the shoulders of the entire franchise, which has been a black eye for the Sixers, this Ben Simmons situation.
But I'll tell you what, they've played pretty darn well without him, and it may have been a blessing in disguise, because you know what, you've got Maxey, who's playing real well, and the other guy Tybo looks like a player, and you're not hooked into a $100 million contract, and now you're able to get that albatross off your payroll and add a guy like Harden, and Harden I think has an opt-in year for next year, correct?
Yeah, and
which you assume he'll pick up that option. I think it's for $44 million for next year. So you would assume he'll be back for next year, and then we'll see what happens. You have a chance if you guys aren't happy with Harden after next year, you can get rid of him, and you're not stuck for a million years with that contract of Ben Simmons. That's the other thing, Rob. As long as Embiid is on the team and Embiid is healthy, okay, if it doesn't work out, you're gonna have the money to go out and bring in somebody else.
Pete Evans, he's chiming in. He was Birds of a Feather every Thursday night here on A2D Radio. What's up, fam? Absolutely agree with the poll. He thinks Matthew Stafford is a Hall of Famer. We'll circle back to that if there's time. Agree, the Sixers are primed for a championship run. Looking forward to potentially having a summer championship parade. That'd be cool. There's a lot of good teams. There are. This is the most parity that there's been in the NBA in a really long time. Long time.
That's for sure. That's for sure. I mean, you've got in the West, Golden State's looking good. The Lakers are not good this year.
They're trash.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere.
They don't play any defense.
The Phoenix Suns look like a formidable team again.
I'll worry about I'll worry about the West in June if I get there.
Exactly. You don't have to really worry about the West until you have to, unless you get to the finals.
And by the way, as good as the Suns are, they only beat the Sixers by 4 a couple weeks ago with really just Joel Embiid and a bunch of a second tier guys. Now you're putting Harden in the mix. So
true, but then
we'll go to battle with the Suns with James Harden, no problem.
They were also on the road and we're on a long road trip. But again, that you don't even have to worry about that right now. What you have to worry about is the East. The West, you don't even know who you're going to play in the West. You may not even play that. So I
think the Warriors are going to get there.
Most likely, yes. And the Warriors, in spite of not having Draymond for a while, still continue to be that team.
Well, Klay Thompson's starting to wake up. He's starting to get back into the swing of things after his Achilles, and I think he had 33 the other night. It's a terrific game, and Steph is starting to figure it out with Flash brothers, learn how to play with each other for a little bit there. Because in that, Klay's starting to do his thing. They have Wiggins. They have player I'm really excited about, James Wiseman. I think he's got all the skills in the world. He hasn't played a lick for him this season. He's going to be coming back soon. And you have Draymond coming back. So the Warriors are loaded. But if you look at the East, I don't trust the Nets at all.
There's 4 teams in the East that are real good.
Do you think the Nets have a better chance to go to the finals with Ben Simmons as opposed to James Harden? Because I don't.
I really don't know with the Nets. I don't know if the Nets are even going to make the playoffs right now the way they're playing.
You got to think they're going to get it together, at least be in the top 10 to get themselves a chance.
Yeah, they're only in the playoffs by 2 games right now, and Durant isn't coming back for another month. I mean, I know that the last time I looked, I think they had an 11-point lead with with 6 minutes to go in the third quarter. But
yeah, they've blown it open. They're up 18 now.
Oh, okay.
On the Kings.
All right. Well, look.
That's without Kyrie, too. And the Kings, they made some moves at the deadline, too.
Yeah, but the Kings aren't going anywhere this year. I don't like Brooklyn at all right now because it just unless everybody gets healthy and on the same page, that's going to have to happen, and that's definitely not a sure thing. And as injury prone as Kyrie is, and as injury prone as Durant is, I can't get behind them at all this year. I think it's going to be between Milwaukee, the Sixers, Miami, and as you said before, Chicago. I think those are the 4 teams right now. I'm not putting the Nets into that category until I see everybody on the court and playing well and playing healthy. They haven't shown that yet.
Well, you might have to wait till playoffs to see that.
Yeah, but you can't wait until you can't expect them to just go into the playoffs and not play 3/4 of the season and then be playing at your best. These guys have to play together. I mean, none of these guys have barely played together. Simmons is going to have to get used to all these guys and passing the ball where they need to be. Simmons is going to have to play really good defense to help this, to really be a help to this team, because he's not going to contribute in the same way offensively as Harden. So we'll see what happens. The only negative about Harden is that hamstring, and if he's going to play or not, that's the negative. But if Harden can be healthy and play, there's no reason why the Sixers are going to be right there when it comes to June basketball. There's no excuse why they can't be there.
Yeah, and Seth on 19. Seth leads the Nets in scoring tonight with 23 points, and he can do that if he's making shots. He's a tremendous shooter. He can fill it up for you, but he's a role player. You need stars in the NBA, and I'm taking Harden. I'm ditching Drummond and role players like Seth Curry and dumping a bum and Ben Simmons for Harden all day. I don't understand how anybody can look at that trade and say the Sixers gave up.
You got the best. Listen, I think the Nets got a lot of. I think the Nets got a good haul for Harden. I think they salvaged what they could. Harden said he wasn't going to come back in, and you know what? Nash thought that Nash thought that they could talk him into it. He even doubled down on the trade deadline day that Harden wasn't going anywhere, and Harden just said he's not going to re-sign with the Nets next year. So instead of losing him for nothing, they went and they got what they could for him. So
and Don 19 brings me to my next point with a great comment of the night thus far from Don 19. Who has the biggest pressure on him, Doc Rivers or James Harden?
I would say Doc right now.
Doc Rivers has a tremendous amount of pressure on him right now.
Yeah,
he's got to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, or he's going to get looked at as a failure.
Anything short of the Eastern Conference Finals, he's going to be gone. They're going to be bringing in another coach. You know, as a matter of fact, I don't know that he's safe unless he gets to the NBA Finals, because I think that the fans are going to now expect them to get to the finals. Anything less than that,
look, if you fire Doc, you got to pay him, and I don't think they're just going to cut bait with him. So if he gets to the Eastern Conference Finals and loses, he'll be back.
If he gets to the Eastern Conference Finals and he loses in 7 games, you know, and it's like to the Bucks, okay, fine. But other than that, you know, I think that you're going to see. I think first of all, I do think Philly is going to end up being in the Eastern Conference Finals at minimum, and then we'll see what happens. As I said, the key is going to be if Harden can play and he can play effectively.
But Doc Rivers, after the loss to the Suns, he came out and said that he's short a guard. He needs a guard. Ben Simmons not here. I need another guard in the mix to beat a team like the Suns. So Daryl Morey goes out and he gets him the best guard he can find, a top 5 offensive player in the league in James Harden. So Doc got what he wanted. You know, we need Boston Doc and Orlando Doc that won games and overachieved, which he did in Orlando a lot. People forget about that. You know, I need the Doc that was voted one of the 15 best coaches of all time on the NBA 75 list. Not Doc Rivers that's going to use 10-man rotations in the playoffs for no reason. Not Doc that's going to blow 3-1 leads. Not Doc who's going to lose to the Atlanta Hawks in 7 games at home. So there's no excuses for Doc. None.
You're right.
So the pressure
right now it's on Doc.
So the pressure was on Morey to resolve this Ben situation. Morey stepped up like the Rams stars did last night, and Daryl Morey made a deal and got it done. Now that pressure, all that pressure that was on Morey, shifts to Doc Rivers, and Doc's got to get it done. You have 2 top 10 players, and you have 2 terrific role players in Harris and Maxey, and you have Thibault and Danny Green off the bench. And I think they're going to be able to add a buyout guy, because now Philadelphia is an attractive buyout spot because you get to play with James Harden and Joel Embiid, and you might win. Guy I have my eye on is Eric Bledsoe. If Eric Bledsoe gets bought out by the Portland Trailblazers after he goes from the Clippers to Portland, looks like Portland's just burning it down. I don't know what Portland's doing. I don't know what they made. A terrible trade for CJ McCollum. I don't know. You know I don't get Portland.
Dame is out. Dame is out for the season, so maybe they're just tanking to try to get themselves a real top-notch college player.
But I mean, they're in la la land, Brad. If they think that they're going to get stars to align in Portland,
well, they'll have Lillard.
Okay, but they've had Lillard for 10 years.
I understand that, but now they're going to have money to go out and try to bring somebody in to help them out. So that's always a possibility. Or Lillard will end up getting traded. It's going to be one or the other.
The Nets are a fragile team. Bob Brinkman. The Nets are a fragile team who knows what Ben can do, and Kyrie can't play at home. Durant is going to lose his patience before long.
Well, that's not
Durant
fair, because Durant hasn't played, so you can't sit there and start saying Durant is going to lose his patience. How about the fans are getting impatient with the fact that Durant never plays?
Well, he might lose his patience. Well, first off, he's never going to lose his patience with Kyrie Irving, because all reports indicate that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving are joined at the hip. They're buddies, and Durant isn't too worried about Kyrie getting vaccinated or not, whereas James Harden was, and that was the crux the conflict in Brooklyn. If I'm
absolutely
connecting the dots here and reading between the lines.
That's
So
absolutely.
James Harden had it with Kyrie Irving, and James Harden didn't think Kyrie Irving was all in to win a championship. James Harden is all in to win a championship, so he wanted to get the hell out of there.
I would agree with you.
And Durant's not going to turn his back on his boy Kyrie Irving,
No.
so the Nets have what they have now. But
which when they're all on the court can be very dangerous. But can we see them on the court before we anoint them anything right now? Because I'm not going to give them credit for anything until I see these guys on the court, which they are not. And a guy like Simmons who hasn't played all year, what makes you think that he's going to come back and he's going to play and he's not going to get hurt because he hasn't played all year and he's not going to be in top shape? I mean, listen, basketball is a physical sport, and you need to get in shape. And being in shape and being in NBA shape are two different issues.
Bob Brinkman, Joe Harris, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, and James Harden have to give you 75 points a game. That's going to win you a lot. Yeah, that's a fair over-under for each night that they're on the court together. They probably got to be around 75 points.
I don't know that you're necessarily going to get that, but you're not going to need that because somebody will get you 30, somebody will get you 15, and then somebody else will get you 30. That's always a possibility to do that.
That's 75, Brad.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to figure out 75. That's 20. You're saying 25 each. I mean, maybe they get 75. That seems a little bit high. I'd say more like 60. But to be realistic, I don't think
if those three combine for 60 points in the second round of the playoffs against one of the good teams that we just mentioned, Chicago.
Well,
Milwaukee.
You got a bench though, Rob. You guys got to have a very good bench. So that
they don't.
Well, they still have they're gonna have guys that come.
No, the Sixers are only 7 deep right now.
Well, who's on their bench? Green and Tybalt?
Well, one of them's gonna have to start.
Okay,
so you're starting. Harden's not playing until the All-Star break, so you're playing with a short deck for
when is the
however long that is.
When is the All-Star break, by the way?
It's coming up. They just picked the teams. Shows how much I follow the day-to-day operations of the NBA. I don't even know when the All-Star break is, but
closely either.
It's got to be coming up. But like you have your starting 5 is Harden, Maxey. We'll say Green, Tobias, and Joe. Then you have Thibault off the bench, and really not much. Like you have guys that Millsap will play a role. That's 7. Like Shake Milton. I'm not trying to see him play extended minutes in the playoffs. Furkan Korkmaz, I'm not trying to see him get extended minutes in the playoffs.
Well, they'll get their 8 to 10 minutes.
Isaiah Joe, no thanks. Georges Niang, he's okay. He can stand in the corner and maybe make some shots for you. So, they need a buyout player. They need 1, maybe 2 buyout guys to come in and really, really shore this thing up.
They'll probably go out and get him. I mean, there's no reason why they can't.
It's an attractive spot.
Absolutely. If you want to win a championship, that's what you want.
And Mike Marshall, Harden and Embiid are going to eat. I agree with that. Pick and roll, match made in heaven, really complement each other well. Much better than Harden complements Joe better than Bradley Beal or Dame Lillard, in my opinion. So they got the crown jewel of the available max guys on the market. So Daryl Morey did a good job there. Benches don't matter in the playoffs. You still need 8 guys, 7 guys. I agree with you. Benches shorten up in the playoffs unless you're Doc Rivers, who just wants to play 10 guys all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, and we've seen how that works out for him in years past. Comes up short a lot. That's why all the pressure's on Doc Rivers here.
Yeah, he's got to dole out the minutes, but they'll be fine. Listen, they'll be fine.
The Sixers now have first world problems. They have first world basketball problems because you made a trade with the Brooklyn Nets and you won the trade simply because you got the best player in James Harden in the trade. Not to mention you're getting rid of a bum in Ben Simmons. that's what he is. He's a bum. Guy's a bum. He don't have it between the ears. Doesn't matter how talent you are if you don't have it between the ears. Look at Jamarcus Russell and Ryan Leaf. All the talent in the world. Throw the ball miles.
I wouldn't put him quite in that category. This guy was an all-star. I mean, he was a good player.
Yeah, and he'll let you know if you forgot. Just ask Ben Simmons; he'll remind you.
I understand that, but you guys are making like he couldn't play, and that's not true.
Well, he couldn't play because he didn't want to because his feelings were hurt.
This year, you're talking about this year, but in past years, he's shown to be a pretty good player.
No, I was always a Ben guy when he was here, but the second you want to stop showing up and be a bad teammate and turn your back, you can't have that.
This stunt that he pulled is pretty awful. I agree, and I understand how Sixer fans feel. I feel the same way about him. And I'm not even a Sixer fan. That what a jerk this guy is. But we'll see what happens if he comes to Brooklyn and he wants to play and he's got his head on straight. And he becomes a good teammate. Who knows? But again, I got to see it first to believe it.
Troy 8. I mean, you're right. I mean, you can't play in the playoffs. You're playing Brooklyn Nets will be playing 4-on-5 in the playoffs if they make the playoffs, which I think they will.
And listen, that's a big if right now. I'm not going to guarantee anything right now. Let's see them actually start winning some games. Okay, they've lost 10 in a row, 11 in a row.
And Sean Caron, he says he would go after Dragic. No thanks. He's over the hill and washed. Not interested in Goran Dragic, but I mentioned Eric Bledsoe. Eric Bledsoe would be an awesome addition. You can bring him off the bench. He can be your sixth man. He can transport the basketball up and down the floor. He can get you some buckets. That'd be a tremendous bench piece to add on the buyout market if he is to get bought out by the Portland Trailblazers. And that's a very good name as well, Sean. Gary Harris, another good name. Defensive guy, Orlando, no point in him being in Orlando. So we'll see. Don.19, a very underrated move. The Celtics getting Derek White from the Spurs. I mean, okay, but, I've been reading reports all season.
The Celtics don't have enough. They just don't.
I don't know. All I hear about is how Jaylen Brown and Tatum, how it's not working up there.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. They're not good enough. I'm not putting them in the top four teams. The top four teams, any one of them are capable of getting to the finals. I think that the favorites right now have to be the Sixers and Milwaukee, and Miami and then Miami and Chicago would be my second and third choices. But those two teams right now are co-favorites. And it's really going to be a question with Philly. It's going to be a question of, can they get Harden back and can Harden stay healthy and stay on the court? If Harden stays on the court, they're going to be a very dangerous team. No question about that.
All right, we got a few minutes left here. Flight Zone will be coming up next. Keep it locked right here. Do you want to start roasting the MLB owners or should I? Because this thing is a joke, and we're not going to have. I'm convinced that there's not going to be a baseball season this year.
I'm convinced that there's not going to be spring training. That's for sure. And
but Brad, they're so far apart in these negotiations. It's ridiculous, and they meet like once a month. They should be meeting every day, every other day.
There's not. And listen, I know you completely blame the owners, but the players aren't exactly angels either. I'm not too crazy about the play. I've always kind of been more of a pro owner guy than a players guy. I think the players are grotesquely overpaid. Minimum salary is $750,000, and I don't want to hear this bullshit that our careers are only 4 or 5 years. Well, hey, you know what? If you can't if you play baseball for 5 years in Major League Baseball, or excuse me, if you play 4 years in Major League Baseball, you're going to have $3 million of career earnings. Okay. You're telling me you can't get by on $3 million and then get a real job? Okay, sorry, I don't feel sorry for the players at all. I really think that.
So you don't think it's wrong that the owners, avoid paying the players by keeping them down for a week and then bring them up so they have another year of control? You're not.
Well, based on what the players are making, I would do the same thing, and I don't blame them. I mean, you got guys making 20, 30, 40 million dollars a year. Guys that aren't even good are making $20 million a year. Come on. I don't mind seeing the Bryce Harpers of the world making money. I'm okay. I'm okay with that. They deserve every penny. But you know what? We're talking about guys who are like average players making $7-8 million a year. I mean, come on. That's ridiculous.
Well, I think baseball also has a huge issue with the owners of say, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Baltimore Orioles, who just want to take the revenue sharing money that they get from the Yankees and the Red Sox and just pocket it and just in building a winner.
Well, that's
40.
See that the tanking issue. The tanking issue. That's something
It's not tanking though. When it's not tanking, they have no interest in building winners in Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and I'm sure there's others. There's others as well that we can name.
Well,
but those are the two that come to mind.
And if you don't put any money in your team, you're tanking because you're trying to get. Now, from what I understand, that they've agreed that they're going to have a lottery now, so that these teams don't tank. So if you're the worst team in baseball, you could end up getting the 15th pick.
But that doesn't stop NBA teams from tanking.
Yeah, but it's a little different there because there's only 5 players on a team. So it's a little different there. I mean, after Philadelphia made a mockery of the NBA with what they pulled in 2016 and 17, they've tightened things up, and I think the rest of the leagues are kind of going to have to do the same thing. I mean, the NHL has kind of tightened that up too. You can't sit there and just lose all the time just so that you can get the best player in the draft. That's just not going to work anymore. And with these baseball teams, they never were held accountable for that. So that's something that it sounds like the owners are willing to do that. So that should be a start. But I'm sorry, Rob, I can't go with you about the owners. I think the players make way too much money, and ultimately we're the ones that get screwed, that we have to pay almost $100 a ticket to go to a game. Okay, if you're a New York sports fan and you want to go to a Yankee game or a Met game, you're going to pay close to $100 to sit in a good seat. Okay, and that's bullshit. Okay, and that's because these players are making an exorbitant amount of money. I mean, and again, I don't deny the top players making the big bucks. I'm okay with that. What I'm not okay with is a mediocre player making between $7 and $15 million. I'm sorry. That just annoys the crap out of me to see that. So that you can say what you want about that, but there's too many players that as soon as they get paid,
all right, we got to put a wrap on it. That happens in every sport, but we got to put a cap on it tonight. It was a good discussion tonight. Thank you, Frank Vesby, for producing the show. Thank you for our great sponsors. Thank you, everyone who liked, subscribed, and shared our show, commented on our show. Sports Hounds will be back rocking and rolling next Monday right here on A2D Radio. Until then, peace out, everybody.